The wind carried grit sharp as broken glass scraping across the parched land as if trying to peel the skin from it. The sun was down, but the sky burned red, a fire smeared across the horizon. In that blaze of dying light, a horse stumbled toward the Mercer ranch, its rider slumped forward, barely clinging to the reins. Blood soaked the mare's flank. With a final guttural snort, the animal collapsed into the dust. The girl fell with it. Her body struck the dry earth hard, and she didn't move. From the porch, Holt Mercer didn't blink. He stood barefoot, wetting an axe head with slow, deliberate strokes, eyes fixed on the girl. Long limbs, black braids caked with dried blood, bare feet. No older than 17. Apache. She'd ridden a long way to die. His dog growled low. Holt raised one hand and the dog quieted. He didn't rush to her, just watched. Stillness hung thick in the air, broken only by the creak of the windmill and the distant whine of sand through broken fences. Then she stirred, just barely. Her hand moved toward a small bundle tied to her waist, something wrapped in dark buffalo hide, tight and careful. She didn't speak, just breathed out hard and passed out cold. Holt sighed, sheathed the axe, and moved forward with the weight of a man who'd made peace with death a long time ago. As he knelt beside her, he didn't check for a pulse. Instead, he looked past her toward the darkening east and muttered to the wind, "They'll come." Then he lifted the girl in his arms and carried her toward the house. A rider bleeding into his dirt wasn't the first bad omen to cross his path, but it would be the last he ever ignored. The house was small, built of thick adobe and weather-aged timber, its bones as tired as the man who inhabited it. Inside, Holt laid the girl on a cot meant for tools and saddle blankets. The dog, a scar-faced mutt named Crook, circled once and laid down by the door, one eye open. Holt found the lamp, lit it with a cracked match, and took in the sight before him. The girl's right shoulder was torn open, a bullet wound, the kind that splintered going in and burned hot coming out. He could smell infection already. Her lips were cracked white and her hands trembled even in unconsciousness. He took a deep breath, then another, the same way he used to before storming a breach. It had been 5 years since he'd touched another human being. He moved with care. Hot water, clean rags. He used what whiskey he had left, not the bottle he drank from, but the one kept high on a beam for wounds and snakebite. She didn't scream when he dug the slug out, but her breath hitched like a dying animal's. He stitched her shoulder without prayer or poetry, just hard fingers and old skill. She shivered through the night, muttering in Apache, most of it nonsense. He caught one word again and again. Usan, the sacred mountain, the place of beginnings. Holt didn't sleep, just sat in the shadows and watched the girl. She was younger than he first thought, barely more than a child. Her braid had come undone, and in the lamplight her face looked thinner, her cheeks hollowed from hunger. Crook snored beside the door. Holt took out his pipe but didn't light it. Outside, coyotes howled. The desert always sang at night. It sang of death, of lost things, of ghosts. Holt understood its song too well. They called this place El Sable, not a town, not even a settlement. Just a dead patch of scrubland 5 days east of Tucson where men disappeared when they wanted to be forgotten. He'd come here after the war, after the raid on White Rock, after the fire, after the graves. He never spoke about that part. Not to the preacher who tried to come save him, not to the men who offered him work, not to the women who came lonely and left colder. After his wife and daughter had been taken, there wasn't much left to bury but the man he used to be. What remained was a ghost with calloused hands who built fences by day and sharpened blades by night. A man who no longer prayed. Holt reached into the old whiskey crate where he kept the only thing that survived the fire, a charred music box. The lid was scorched black, but inside the mechanism still played if you cranked it just right. He didn't play it often. Only when the ghosts got too close. Tonight he wound it. A soft broken melody filled the room, something sweet, something once meant for a child. The girl stirred. Her eyes fluttered, unfocused. "Thank you," she whispered. Her voice was raw, dry. Holt didn't answer, just kept winding the box. There were things you couldn't fix, not with words, not even with time. The girl fell back asleep. Holt sat in silence, listening to the ruined music drift over them both. Dawn broke soft and gold, painting the desert in bruised pinks and silent purples. The girl woke, coughing, her hand clawing at the satchel tied to her waist. Holt was already up feeding the horses, his figure framed against the pale morning. When he returned, she had managed to sit, her face pinched with pain but her eyes steady. "Where is it?" she asked, her accent, thick voice, hoarse. Holt set a tin of water near her. "Still with you." She drank slowly, watching him with the alertness of a cornered fox. "You speak Apache enough to get cursed properly." That drew the faintest flicker of a smile from her cracked lips. Then her eyes turned down. "You should have left me. I bring only death. Then we match." Holt moved to the stove, lit the fire. "What's your name, Luyu?" she said, barely louder than the kettle's hiss. "Of the Chichil tribe, or what's left." Holt paused, then nodded once. "Holt Mercer. You were a soldier, that obvious." She gestured at his back. The faded tattoo. CSA. Southern Cross with a hawk above it. "We don't forget symbols," she murmured. He didn't respond. Silence settled thick between them, interrupted only by the clatter of the kettle. When he handed her some bitter coffee, she took it with both hands. "They'll come," she said. "They follow the satchel, not me." "What's in it you don't want to know?" "You're bleeding in my cot. I'd say I earned the right." She hesitated. Then with careful fingers she untied the satchel. Inside was a roll of buffalo hide wrapped with sinew cords. She didn't open it, just held it as if it were something fragile, holy. "It's the sacred map of the Yusan Range. Hidden trails, burial grounds, spirit places, the old ways. It's not just directions, it's stories, names. It belongs to the tribes and someone wants it." 50 men, she whispered, guns for hire. White men, Mexicans, some Apache traders. They call themselves the Crows. Their leader, Garin Price. He hunts for gold oil relics, pays his men in blood and fire. He found out what I carried. Holt didn't speak, just nodded slowly, jaw tightening. Luyu leaned forward, eyes burning. "I saw what they did to the village that protected me. Burned the children in their sleep. Natsil, who gave me her bread, they hanged her over her own cook fire." Her voice broke, but she didn't cry. She just kept talking. "They don't stop. Unless they're buried." Holt rubbed his face. His hands were shaking. "You knew Price?" she asked suddenly. Holt stared at the fire and the shadows flickered across his eyes. "He was a captain, same unit. After the war he started hunting old battlefields for loot. Then he moved west. I heard he'd gone bad." Luyu nodded once. "He's worse than bad. He wears bones around his neck. Apache fingers. The day I escaped, he laughed and said he'd come for me next." She looked up. "I didn't mean to bring this to you. I believe you." He stood, crossed the room, looked out across the barren stretch of land. "But you did." Luyu rested back against the cot, clutching the satchel to her chest like a child with a sacred toy. "You gonna send me out?" He didn't answer. She nodded. "I wouldn't blame you." He turned back to her. His voice was low, but it struck like iron. "You're not going anywhere." Outside, the wind began to change. It always did before the riders came. The first sign was a dust cloud, long, low, and slow-moving across the horizon. Holt stood on the roof, spyglass in hand, the desert sun already stinging his neck. Through the smudged glass he counted riders. Dozens. Maybe more. Black shapes against the pale sand. They came in a loose column spread wide like wolves, not soldiers. At their center rode a man in a long black duster, his hat creased low, a bone necklace dangling against his chest. Garin Price. His horse was black as pitch, its mane braided with feathers and blood-colored beads. He rode like a man who didn't fear bullets because he rarely left anyone alive to shoot back. Holt recognized that posture. He'd seen it in the mirror once. Holt lowered the glass. "They're coming in slow," he muttered to himself. "Not in a hurry." That's worse. Back in the house, Luyu was loading a rifle. It looked too big for her, but she handled it like she'd been raised with it strapped to her back. "You know him better than I do," she said. "What's he want first, blood or the satchel, whichever's easier?" Holt replied. He handed her a second rifle, an old Henry he'd used on bears once. If they want in, they'll have to earn it. The ranch had only a few defensible positions. Holt knew every inch of it, not because he expected war, but because guilt doesn't sleep easy. He'd built walls with more than wood, barbed wire fences, false trails, even hidden pits near the west bluff. But 50 men was no small number. They'd sweep in like a brush fire. Crook growled low and steady. They call themselves the Crows, Luyu. Said again, checking the cylinder of a Colt. Do you know why no? Because they leave no graves, just bones and ashes. Her voice trembled. We used to call the white soldiers ghosts in blue. But these men, they're worse. They take trophies. Holt nodded. He remembered the look in Price's eyes during the last campaign in Missouri. The way he smiled as towns burned, the way he gave orders without blinking. After the war, Holt had heard rumors. Garin had taken bounties on Comanche, then Apaches, then anyone brown enough to pass. Then he started taking things he wasn't hired to. Sacred items, skulls, holy beads. Every man who rode with him either feared him or followed him into hell willingly. Holt opened his gun chest. The Henry rifle. A scattergun. His old Navy revolver still wrapped in oilcloth. He slid it free and checked the chamber. 6 iron judgments. Luyu watched him with unreadable eyes. Why help me, she asked. You could leave. They'll burn this place. Holt holstered the pistol. They burned the last place I loved. And this one, no one's taking it. He paused. Not again. Luyu looked away. They killed a woman named Tessa when they came for me. She helped me hide. They nailed her to her own barn. Holt closed the chest. They won't touch you again. That night they set traps. Holt dug in near the windmill where the fences funneled into a narrow gap. He rigged dynamite from old mining caps. He handed Luyu a mirror for signaling and placed her in the loft with a clear shot to the south trail. Don't waste bullets. Aim for collars, not hearts. These men don't feel much. You used to be like them, she said. He didn't answer. Midnight. The moon bled through the clouds like a slit throat. Crook growled again. Holt crouched by the corner of the house, heart steady, breath shallow. He hadn't felt this alive since before the fire, since before the world had fallen apart. The first rifle crack rang out like a whip. One of the crows went down screaming, then another. The dynamite roared, shaking the earth. Screams, chaos, gunfire danced in the dark like fireflies gone mad. And then silence, brief, terrible silence. From the smoke walked Garin Price, unhurt, untouched. He carried a carbine and a saber. His voice echoed through the dust. Holt Mercer Holt stood. I was hoping you died in a ditch. Garin grinned. I've come for what's mine. She's not yours. Neither was White Rock. But we took it anyway. Holt's blood froze. Luyu whispered behind him. White Rock Garin raised his saber and pointed it toward the house. I'll give you till dawn. You hand her over the map, the girl, everything, or I turn this ground red. He rode back into the dark. Holt stood motionless. Luyu stepped beside him, her face pale. What happened at White Rock? Holt didn't answer. Couldn't. The wind picked up again, dragging ash and old guilt through the dry air. Inside the music box played by itself just once. A broken, haunting note. Dawn didn't come gentle. It broke jagged and raw, tearing open the horizon with streaks of burning orange and bruised red as if the sky itself was bleeding. Holt stood on the porch, rifle cradled in his arms, hat low over his eyes. Luyu was beside him, her wounded shoulder stiff beneath the makeshift sling. She hadn't slept. Neither had he. Crook paced back and forth near the door, teeth bared. The wind carried a sour scent, gunpowder, sweat, and something darker like old graves stirred up too early. From the edge of the bluffs came a shriek, high-pitched, ululating, a mockery of Apache war cries. Then came the riders. 50 men in black dusters and ragged hats, their faces painted with ash and grease, descended like a tidal wave of death. At the head rode Garin Price, his saber raised, the sun flashing off its tarnished blade. Holt didn't wait. He fired first, dropping the nearest rider with a clean shot between the eyes. Then the air erupted. The second dynamite trap exploded, sending horses and men flying. Screams tore through the wind. Lu Yu fired from the loft, her aim ruthless. One crow tumbled from his horse, clutching his throat. Another spun backward, his rifle flung high into the air. The porch shuddered under the weight of gunfire. Holt ducked, reloaded, and fired again. Left flank, Lu Yu shouted. Holt pivoted, dropping a rider who'd tried to flank through the cactus rows. Crook charged into the smoke, biting and snarling like a beast let loose from hell. But they kept coming. Like floodwater over cracked ground. Like the past. Holt moved with precision, calm amid chaos. He ducked under beams, leapt over troughs, reloaded behind hay bales. But they were too many. A shot clipped his shoulder. He stumbled but didn't fall. Lu Yu cried out she'd been hit too, a graze across her thigh. Still she kept firing. One bullet, one death. Blood splattered the adobe walls, mixing with dust and ash. Price rode through the center, untouched, shouting commands. Burn it all! Tear it down! The crows began to torch the barn. Flames leapt high, cracking wood like bones. The horses screamed. Holt sprinted through the fire to cut them loose, slapping their haunches, watching them bolt into the open. He turned, face blackened, eyes blazing. Price saw him and smiled. Still got fight, Holt, he yelled. Even after White Rock, Holt froze just a breath. That name again? Price laughed. I told him not to burn the girl first, remember, but you stood there, didn't you? You watched. Lu Yu, hidden behind the water barrel, looked toward Holt. Something shifted in her gaze. The porch post exploded near her head. She ducked back down. Holt shook it off. Fired. Price's lieutenant took a bullet in the chest and fell without a sound. Pull back, Holt shouted to Lu Yu. To the house. They fell back as the barn collapsed in fire. The ranch yard was a charnel house now, bodies everywhere, smoke choking the sky. Crook limped back, bleeding from the leg. Inside, Holt barricaded the door. Lu Yu slumped against the wall, breathing hard. We're not winning this, she said. Doesn't matter, Holt answered. He handed her a pouch. Take this. Head for the Arroyo Trail. You can lose them in the canyons. She looked at him. What about you? I'll slow 'em down. You'll die, probably. No. She grabbed his wrist. No more dying for things that don't matter. Holt stared at her. This matters. He touched the satchel still tied at her side. This is what they killed for. What we let burn. This map, it's more than land. It's memory. It's truth. Lu Yu's eyes filled with tears she didn't shed. I'm not leaving you. I gave up once, he said quietly, when they came for White Rock. I turned my back. Didn't pull the trigger. I can't do that again. You didn't know, she whispered. I knew enough. He handed her his old Navy revolver. If they get close, you use this. It doesn't jam. Pointed at their hearts. They still have those, even if they forgot. A crash shook the walls. The front was giving way. Holt kissed the music box and slid it into her satchel. Take it. It belonged to my daughter. It still plays. Lu Yu held it like a sacred relic. Your name? It'll be remembered. Just make sure they don't forget hers, he said. Tessa. Then he shoved open the side door, disappearing into the smoke with fire in his eyes. The final battle was fast and merciless. Holt moved like a shadow, taking down man after man in tight quarters in the smoke and the screams. He lit barrels of pitch, turned troughs into traps, scattered them like dry leaves. Then came Price. They met by the windmill face to face. You always were soft, Price sneered. Tried to grow a conscience, too late. Holt raised the Navy revolver. Better late than never. You won't stop me. I don't have to. The windmill creaked. The dynamite Holt had wired there earlier exploded. The tower collapsed in flame, taking both men down in a rain of splinters and fire. Lu Yu, already halfway down the Arroyo Trail, turned just once. The sky behind the ranch glowed with fire. A scream echoed, then silence, then nothing. She ran into the desert, the satchel tight against her chest, the music box clinking inside. A single note rang out as it shifted, a quiet, broken lullaby. Holt was gone, but the fire he lit would burn far beyond El Sable. The arroyo was dry as bone and twisted like a broken limb, cutting through the desert with walls of red clay and ancient fossils. Luyu moved fast despite the pain in her leg, breath shallow, the satchel pressed tight against her ribs. The trail narrowed, then vanished altogether. She ducked into a slot canyon hidden by overgrowth and jagged boulders. There she waited, nothing but the wind and the faint echo of fire behind her. The ranch was gone. Holt was gone. She hadn't cried yet. Not when the barn burned, not when the shots stopped, not when the windmill fell. But now in the stillness the grief rose like floodwater. She reached into the satchel and drew out the music box. Its lid was scorched, the edges chipped. She wound it once careful and let it play. The melody limped through the narrow pass, a lullaby no child would ever hear again. She clutched it tight, eyes closed. "Forgive me," she whispered, "for surviving." It took a day to reach the old campfire site, another sacred place hidden beneath the bleached arms of a dead mesquite. She waited there, drank sparingly, cleaned her wound, and finally opened the buffalo hide. The map inside was older than she expected. Painted symbols, not English, not Apache. Older glyphs from the first tongues, the root stories. Paths twisted through rivers that no longer existed. Mountains were marked with teeth, with suns, with red handprints. Some of the trails led to burial caves. Others to forbidden springs where the gods were said to whisper in the steam. This was more than land. It was the living memory of her people. Luyu wept. Not from pain, but from the weight of it. She had carried a people's soul wrapped in hide and hadn't even known it. That's why they hunted her. Not for gold, not even for vengeance, but because men like Garen Price feared anything they couldn't own. And now she held it, and she didn't know what to do. The music box played again, soft and weak. She thought of Holt, the way he looked back at the burning ranch unflinching. The way he said his daughter's name. The way he never once asked for forgiveness, only stood his ground. It was then in the fading light that a sound behind her made her turn. A man, one of the crows, limping, arm in a sling, face burned. He raised his pistol. "You think we don't finish what we start," he growled. "He's dead. That old fool, he's dead, and so are you." Luyu didn't reach for the revolver. She simply stood, held out the music box like it was a shield. "This is what you killed for, all of it. Not me. This." The man hesitated. His hand trembled. "You don't even know what that thing is." "I do now." She opened the satchel further, let the map spill out at her feet. "Come take it. But know this, every mile of it's marked with the blood of people better than you." He raised the gun, and then a shot rang out. The man dropped, a clean hole between his eyes. Behind him stood a figure, a bent old woman in Apache beads and torn buckskin, holding a long-barreled rifle. "We've been watching," she said in Apache. "Waiting." Luyu fell to her knees. "I didn't think anyone was left." The woman approached slowly. Her hair was white, eyes sharp. "There are always some. Shadows in rock, whispers in wind." She knelt beside the map, touched it reverently. "You carry sacred things, girl. I didn't mean to. Doesn't matter what you meant, only what you do next." Luyu looked down at the blood on her hands. "I don't know the songs, or the trails. I don't know enough." The old woman lifted the map. "Then you will learn, and you will teach. This is how we survive. Not with fire, not with guns, with memory." The two women sat in silence as the sun sank behind the cliffs. The music box played once more, soft and broken, a lullaby carrying the weight of two dead children, one Apache, one white. Bound now by blood. Luyu looked to the horizon. She would carry the satchel, she would carry the story, and she would never run again. They buried Holt Mercer beneath the mesquite tree overlooking the canyon mouth. Luyu did it herself. Her hands blistered, her breath ragged but steady. No preacher came, no eulogy was spoken. Just the quiet crunch of dry earth and the hush of desert wind as she laid his charred saber beside the body and placed the music box on the mound, open, silent, no longer playing. She carved no name into the stone, only a Mark II crossed feathers. Not for what he was, but for what he became. A shield, a line in the sand, a ghost who finally stood. The old woman Nantan stayed with her until moonrise. Then others came. Not many, but enough. Survivors, nomads, young warriors with old eyes. They came barefoot, carrying songs instead of rifles. When they saw the map, they fell to their knees. They recognized it not as a treasure but as home. Luyu told them the story. Not all at once, not clean or perfect, but she told it, piece by piece, around fires, under stars, through tears. She spoke of White Rock and El Sable and the man who gave his life so memory could live. In time, they called her Tessa. She never corrected them. She carried the satchel with her everywhere, never hiding it, never surrendering it. She became the map's guardian, not out of duty, but because no one else could. Garin Price's body was never found. Some said he burned with the windmill. Others claimed he crawled into the rocks and died among the scorpions, but the crows scattered. Without their captain, they turned on each other, vanishing like ash in water. No one rode with bone necklaces anymore. No one dared. Years passed, trails healed. The land stayed harsh, but it remembered. And so did Luyu. She became a myth, half girl, half ghost. A whisper carried by caravan fires, the Apache girl with a dead white man's rifle and a satchel that held the past. She never returned to the ranch, never rebuilt it. But she returned once each year on the first cold night of spring. To the grave, to the music box. She'd wind it and it would never play. That was its penance. And its prayer. On her final visit, she brought a child not hers by blood but by bond. A little boy with bright eyes and no name. She handed him the satchel and said, "You will walk these paths, but not alone." Then she wound the box one last time, and for a single breath the tune played. Just one note, clear, pure, enough. She left the boy by the grave and walked into the desert. No one saw her die, no one buried her. But for years afterward, travelers would find strange symbols carved into the stone, new trails, safe trails, trails that only the desperate or the good could see. And beneath the grave, beneath the wind-polished rocks, the music box waited, still, quiet, whole. Some stories echo louder when whispered. Some legacies ride farther than any bullet or boot. In the fire of one ranch, a broken soldier stood again. In the silence of one girl, a people found their voice. And though no song remains forever, some melodies, even broken, carry across generations. If you listen to the wind near El Sable, you might hear a note. If you follow it, you might find the trail. And if you do, remember the girl, remember the ghost, and leave a stone behind. Not for the dead, but for those who still carry the map, the end. Watch the next true Wild West story and don't forget to subscribe.